Welcome to Between Heaven and Earth, an internet radio talk show where we help you connect spirit and divine guidance. Lisa Kay, your host, brings you shows that can enhance and transform your life with tips and new ideas for more happiness, abundance, and better relationships. Lisa is an expert on intuition and can show you how to strengthen your inner guidance to empower yourself. Each show is positive and uplifting to inspire your day. Her guest speakers are specialists on self-help, positive thinking, spirituality, and conscious living. Be the best that you can be with Between Heaven and Earth, conscious living for your soul.
To be richer, thinner, smarter, and faster, you might find yourself still filled with worry and self-doubt. MJ Ryan believes that we've become so dependent on others to tell us how to live our lives that we listen to everyone except ourselves. In her book, Trusting Yourself, Ryan helps us understand that we already have what it takes to cope and learn how to tap into the wisdom inside us by cultivating 3 qualities of self-awareness, self-confidence, and self-reliance. She teaches us how to set the critics aside and to trust ourselves instead. She reveals the inner attitudes and nurture self-trust. If you accept that we learn through trial and error, that we each have unique strengths, and realize that labels only get in the way, then your self-trust will grow, your worries will shrink, and you'll find happiness and success with a lot less effort. MJ Ryan is one of the creators of the New York Times bestselling book Random Acts of Kindness and the author of How to Survive Change You Didn't Ask For, The Power of Patience, and The Happiness Makeover, and many other books. She works as an executive coach to individuals and teams around the world and as a workshop leader for Omega and many other places. Welcome, MJ. I'm so glad you're here today.
I'm happy to be talking with you, Lisa.
This is really, I've been reading your book. It's really fascinating about, there are things in it that I related to. And I think it's a common problem because what I found about trusting yourself is, and the self-confidence and always kind of judging yourself is such a common thing that goes through your head. And perhaps, it's from your parents always telling you, you could have done better, you got to do this instead, or don't make that mistake, whatever it comes from. But I just think that being able to trust yourself more is so, I would like to do that myself because I always have self-doubt. Mm-hmm. So what is the overall principle that you're helping people with in trying to improve their self-trust?
Yeah. So I think I was inspired to write this because so many people were coming to me saying that they lacked self-confidence, particularly women, but not only. I mean, that it seemed like everyone was looking outside of themselves for the answers to their lives. And frankly, it doesn't really work because if we follow everyone else's answers, then we're living their lives, not ours, right? Mm-hmm. But there's been new research that shows that even when someone gives you advice, your brain kind of turns it off.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Why did we do that?
Well, because we want to be able to trust ourselves. We want to be able to figure out how to navigate through life based on who we are. And I think that the fundamental, you were sort of starting to talk about where does this come from? Mm-hmm. I think the fundamental answer is that we are completely taught to pay attention to our flaws. I've never met a person in the world that can't tell you every single thing that's wrong with them, right?
Right.
And
right.
I've got ADD, and and it doesn't mean that we don't have these things maybe, but we are excruciatingly aware of all these things. And yet on the hand, when I say something like, well, what are you great at? What are your strengths? Often people are like completely and absolutely don't know what to say.
Wow. That's interesting. So it goes almost too far because don't you think that sometimes we part of the criticism, the self-criticism, is because we want to be better. So we try to be better, like, well, this is what I need to improve. I need to improve. And so to improve, you need to know what you don't do so good. But it sounds like we go too far with that.
Yes, and there's really, really interesting research about why that's true. So just noticing without judgment, like, oh, I need to get better at this, or I want to get better at this, that's one thing. But the beating ourselves up, where that comes from is actually from our reptilian brain.
Really?
That is the charge of the threat system. So what happens is we've got this part of our brain called the amygdala that we share with all animals, and it's just looking for threats. And if it sees a threat, then it turns on the fight or flight response. What we call being under stress is the fight or flight response turning on to either fight, run, or hide like a little bunny rabbit when something bad's happening. So when we are critical of ourselves, we turn that mechanism on ourselves.
Oh.
We perceive it as a threat that we're not.
So we are our own worst enemy.
Literally, and yes, and we turn that on ourselves, and we beat ourselves up in a failed attempt to try to help ourselves get better. And the person who discovered this said, what does it really even work? And her research shows that it actually doesn't. Her name is Kristen Neff, Neff, and she said it actually inhibits our learning or getting better. And what works better is when we engage the brain, the part of our brain that we share with primates, which is the attach system, which is the be nice to yourself system. So imagine those little monkeys that are clinging on to their moms, right?
Yeah.
And that's the attached system. And so when we're compassionate to ourselves, like, oh yeah, I need to learn how to get better at something, and I'm going to be kind to myself in the doing it, then we actually get better.
And getting better at whatever it is we want to get better at.
Yes. And that we have the threat system turns down and the self-compassion system turns up, and we actually can change and we can grow and we can learn. But it's very counterintuitive because the primitive part of our brain believes that if we beat ourselves up, we're going to get better.
And I think maybe part of it, I'm just kind of thinking about what people would be thinking is that, okay, so if you want to improve, you got to look at what the things are that are not so good. I kind of was mentioning that before. And the more you want to improve, the more you have to look at the things that have to be fixed. And therefore, I need to be fixed. So if I need to be fixed, what am I doing not right? So the opposite to that would sort of be, okay, well, then if I don't, quote, beat myself up or focus on that, and I think that everything's hunky-dory and everything's wonderful, then I'm never going to improve.
Yeah. So it's not that we don't tell ourselves the truth about what we might need to learn or grow, develop. It's that how do we treat ourselves once we know that? That's more what it is.
Okay, so what would be some good ways for us to treat ourselves better?
Okay, so someone else who's not Kristen Neff said that what we need is awareness without judgment.
Ah, okay.
So
I like that.
We need to increase our awareness. Oh, I need to get better at being on time, as an example, right? So I want to get better at being on time. I'm always late. All right. So that's awareness without judgment. The judgment part is I'm such a failure. I'm incompetent. I'm so disorganized. Like that doesn't help us be on time. Right?
So is it removing the judgment, removing, kind of almost being detached from it? Was that what you say?
Yes. So when we have awareness without judgment, you go, okay, I want to get better at being on time. When have I ever been on time? What helped me be on time? Have I ever done it right? What was that happening? And how can I reproduce that? So the more you notice when you've ever done it right, or who do I know who's on time? How do they do it? Could I do what they're doing? You get curious rather than judgmental. Judgment just keeps us stuck. Curiosity helps us change.
That's fascinating because it's sort of like what you do to build any skill if you're learning. And I use this kind of analogy all the time when I'm teaching people to develop their intuition is you want to focus on the things that you did do right. And
Yes.
so perhaps you're learning how to play tennis. You want to learn how to serve, right? And so when it works and you get the ball in the box, then you go through, okay, these are the things I did. I'm going to do that again. But the
Exactly.
things that you don't do well, you don't want to repeat it. So you forget about it. Just don't think
Exactly.
about it. I'm going to, okay, I held the racket this way. I was, I could feel I was using this muscle or I was standing in this position and I got to do that again.
Exactly. And what's interesting that you use the tennis analogy, because the guy who created this system figured it out being a tennis pro.
Something. Oh, that was my intuition.
As we know, you have very good intuition. So it's a guy, and yeah, his name is Timothy Galway, and
Oh,
he trying to figure out what to do with his life. And while he figured it out, he decided, oh, I can teach people tennis. And the more he told them what to do, the worse they got. And instead of thinking I'm a bad tennis teacher and everyone else is a bad student, he thought maybe there's something, and this totally goes with trusting yourself. Maybe there's something with wrong with telling people what to do. And so he developed this whole methodology that all he did was increase people's awareness about
really?
what they were doing physically on the court, and they got better and better and better because he says the brain is the greatest self-correcting mechanism in the universe. The
Mm.
only reason it doesn't is because we get so critical of ourselves and so judgmental that we create interference with tracking success and discarding failure.
Oh, I love that. And that really puts a whole new perspective on just things that we do and how you can apply getting better at anything and being a better person by using. I like that awareness without judgment. Well,
And yeah, and it's really, really hard to do this, of course. I worked with this person who was working with me because she wanted to deal with her anger issues.
oh, I want to hear that story, but I think we're going to go to break right now. And when we come back, I'd love to hear this story. So just hang on to that thought. We'll be right back.
You're listening to OTR FM, part of the IOM radio network.
OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Do you want to be a better communicator? Do you want to better connect with the important people in your life? Do you want to enrich your relationships? If so, join me, Matthew Cooper, on the Positive Control System Show every Wednesday evening at 11 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time on OMTimes Radio. I'll meet you there.
This is Terry Van Horn, and I want to invite you to join me for my weekly radio show, Healing Light, on OMTimes Radio every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. On Healing Light, we want to bring love, light, and blessings into your world. You can find out more about us at www.healinglightonline.com. Blessings.
Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
This is OTR FM, part of the IOM radio network.
And we're back. I'm Lisa Kay, and you're listening to Between Heaven and Earth. And my guest today is MJ Ryan. And we're talking about how to build your self-trust so you can accomplish more, be happier in life, and move forward in a very positive way. And MJ, you were going to tell us a story about
Yes.
I guess a woman with anger issues.
Yes, so this is just about how easy it is just to focus on what we're not doing right, which doesn't help us. So she had anger issues and particularly with a guy at work. So he would just keep pushing her buttons and she would lose it. So I gave her some suggestions and some techniques, and she was going along just fine. Then one day, my phone rings, and we've been doing this for a few months, and then she calls up and she goes, "I am a total and complete and absolute failure." I said, "What happened?" She goes, "Well, I got mad at that guy," and I said, "Well, what did you do?" So she said, "Well, after the meeting, I stomped down the hall." So I said, "Well, first of all, that's better than what you had been doing, which was yelling at him in the meeting, right?"
Mm-hmm.
So stomping down the hall afterwards is probably better. I said, and how many times have you met with him between the time we started doing this and today? And, it was this huge number, 75 times. She had to deal with him every week. And I said, and how many times have you lost it? Once.
Oh.
I said, what's I made her actually do the mathematical formula of what percent that is, right? And it's like a 99.9% success rate, right? But we just see the only thing that we've done that's wrong. And
right. And then she was a complete failure, as she said.
Therefore, she was ready to give up and not again.
Aw.
So that's what
we do. We focus. We seem to hang on to those things. So what do we do to fix that?
Well, what's really, really interesting, there's a bunch of reasons why we do that. So what they've discovered is, and again, this goes back to this threat system we have that's very primitive. Our brains, this one guy calls it, are Velcro for the negative and Teflon for the positive.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an adaptive thing. Because if it was a real threat, like a tiger was about to eat you, you don't want to be looking at the flowers and admiring the sunshine. You want to see the bad thing and deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
But the good news is we don't live in a world where tigers are actually trying to kill us all the time. And so we have to counterbalance that. And what they've discovered is that in order to be able to take in the good, whether it's about ourselves or about our lives or life in general, you have to focus on it for 20 seconds.
20 seconds.
And then it will stick better.
No less.
No less.
So what are you focusing on in those 20s? Are you repeating it to yourself? Are you looking, what are you doing?
It's really taking it in, see, feel, and hear the truth of it.
So let's give us an example.
Well, for instance, let's say you're timid and it's hard for you to speak up, but you did. You challenged yourself to do it, and you did it, and you're going, "Yeah, I did it, yay!" Instead of just passing it on, that moment, go, wait a minute, stop and notice. You really, really did it. How did it feel to do it? It felt really good. Congratulate yourself. That was fabulous, like that. Because we tend to dismiss anything that we did right, and again, because that's what our brains do. So we have to pause there intentionally and really take it in.
It's like you have to recondition your mind and recondition yourself.
Exactly.
Into noticing those things. And I find that I myself have had the habit of when somebody tells me a compliment, I don't hear it.
That's right.
And I forget what they said, or I don't do this anymore. I try not to, but you kind of dismiss it.
Yes.
Somebody will say something nice to you, and you just go, "Oh yeah, well, but."
Yeah, or that old thing, Oh no, yeah.
Yeah. And so first we got to nix that, right?
Yes.
And so.
Yeah.
So I think compliment. Receiving compliments is probably a good place to start.
Absolutely. And part of it is, this is particularly true, I think, for women. Women in particular are somehow we grow up with the belief that if I feel something good about myself, like if I say, I'll tell you a story that'll illustrate it. So I was speaking at a conference. I was standing up in front of 1,000 people, and I was just saying something or other. And I just said in passing, well, I'm just happened to be good at seeing the part and the whole of something at the same time. And that's why I can do this X, Y, or Z thing. To me, it was just a statement of a fact. I happen to be good at this thing. Well, afterwards, a woman came up to me and she said, I want to meet the person a woman who can stand up in front of 1,000 people and say what they're good at.
Oh, really? Wow.
And it's part of it is this conditioning, because if I say I'm good at it, or if you compliment me and say I'm good at something, then that's going to make you feel bad.
Oh, right.
We are so we're taught to be so relational that we're very, very hypersensitive, women are, to not making the other person one down. And somehow we think if I own what I'm good at, then it's going to make you feel bad about yourself.
I think that it makes me think about, and I don't remember her name, but the CEO of Yahoo, who talked about, she wrote the book, Lean In.
Sheryl Sandberg.
Yeah, yes. And, I think being in the corporate world myself and reflecting back on being with men and kind of going against, quote, your feminine nature of having to speak up for yourself so that people would know what you do and what you've accomplished, so you could be recognized and be promoted. It's even hard for me to say that, to move ahead. But men are not like that. In fact, it seems to go the other way, which made me uncomfortable, is that they seem to be bragging all the time. So we feel, perhaps as women, that we're bragging.
Correct. We think of it as bragging. And I'm not even saying we need to even broadcast necessarily what we're good at, but we have to understand it for ourselves. If you don't know what you're good at, how can you use it?
That's a good point.
Right? It's like, the more that we understand ourselves, what are my gifts? What are my talents? What do I have to offer the world? The more we know that, then the more we can use it. If we don't know it, then it's just like having jewels locked up in a safety deposit box that we never bring out.
Oh, absolutely. And that kind of reminds me, one of the talks that I just gave is about, how to start your spiritual business. And, people always say to me, well, what should I be doing it on? There's so many things I'd like to do, but I don't really know what to pick. And I say, well, do what you think you're best at, that you're passionate about, that you like, and that you're really good at. And sometimes they get a quizzical look because they think I don't know what I'm good at.
Yeah, and so you don't know, you can't do anything with it. And I think part of what also gets in our way unintentionally was the self-esteem movement. Because the self-esteem movement, everyone went around telling everyone else how great they were. You're so great, you're so great, you're so great. Well, the brain actually can't do anything with that. It's too generalized. And, but anyone says that to you, you kind of think, well, but I'm not so good at this, and I'm not so good at that, and what about this? But what we really need is a grounded sense of how we are great. Exactly how are you great? Exactly. And it's different than how I am great. And knowing that in its specificity, then we've got something that we can actually do something about.
So how would you discover for yourself what you're good at?
Well, I think that you have to, interestingly enough, sometimes you need to look from the outside and say, what do other people say I'm good at, right?
Okay, sure.
Right? And so when we were talking just before we went on, you told me you were great at noticing diamonds in the rough in people and putting them in the right positions.
Yes.
How did you figure that out about yourself?
I found out through doing it.
Exactly.
And, and then it's like, and also there's something in you that has, there's a spark, it feels right. And you just know, all right, this is what needs to be done. And then you go and do it. And it turns out so incredibly well. And then, and like you said, then other people notice it and they start saying things.
Yeah. So sometimes it's things that other people notice in you. Sometimes it's things that so what's right about what you can't help but do? That's part of it.
That's good, right?
That's a really great way to
understand
your talents. What's right about that fact that you're always cracking jokes? Well, you've got humor. I once worked with this woman. She was a casting director in Hollywood, and one of her thinking talents was humor. And she thought it was a complete waste. She said, this is a stupid talent. Like, what good is it in business? And I said, you've got to be kidding. It's one of the greatest talents you can have to
absolutely
connect with other people. So part of it is it's owning it. So first is the owning it. I am like this. And the second is accepting it. It's okay. It's a good thing that I'm like this.
So, all right. So let's take a step. I'm still going back to the compliment thing. So when going to very basic, elementary, step by step, when you're given a compliment, see, I can even say it. When I'm given a compliment,
Yes.
what do I do? What are my first steps?
Is to take it, to receive it, which is to say, what is this telling me about who I am and what I'm good at?
And probably, I guess the first thing also would be to say thank you rather than to dismiss.
Absolutely, yes. So that's polite.
Right.
But
Or thank you and don't dismiss after. Right.
There's a manners part of it, which is someone says that and you say thank you. But instead of just dismissing it, saying, how is this true? And how does it match up with things I've heard before about myself? Maybe it's really true because people keep telling me this. So like that.
Maybe got to write it down, note it down. Would you recommend writing these things down?
Absolutely. I do know people who in fact who had an issue with this, who keep a compliment journal where they write down compliments so that they pay more attention to them and notice, like, what are these saying about who I am and what I'm not recognizing in myself, right?
Yeah, I think that's powerful. And you have a lot of wonderful things in the book that I went through. I'd love to talk about them when we come back. I know there was something about since we compare well. That's really triggered. I'm like, I'm going to have MJ talk about that. Then read. I'm not going to, blow the surprise in it. And things like, the best way to make decisions and how do we increase our self-trust. I know you've got 15 simple ways to do that. And we're going to go to break in about 20 seconds, and then we'll be able to go over with our audience where you can get more information from MJ, where you can get her book, and where you can meet up with her, because you offer, I guess, counseling and support with your coaching, right?
Absolutely, yes. Delighted to. Through my website, mj.com.
All right, great. We're going to go to break. We'll come back and tell you all about how you can connect with MJ.
This is OTR FM, part of the IOM radio network.
As difficult as it is to believe, there are places in Africa where human traffickers sell albino children and their body parts for use in magic rituals. Humanity Healing International is actively working in Uganda to change this paradigm. The Albino Rescue Project finds albino children who are at risk and places them in safe schools and environments where they can learn and grow free from fear. To learn more or to sponsor a child, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
The name is Bond. James Bond.
No, the name is Joe. The Joe Show. And we are returning back for our 9th season here on OMTimes Radio. So tune in every Wednesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, on OMTimes.com/mobile. You can take us wherever you go. Yeah!
Hi, this is Angela Levesque, host of Entanglement Radio. Join me Wednesdays at 12 p.m. Eastern for inspiring conversations with visionaries in spiritual science and conscious healing. Entanglement Radio, Wednesdays at 12 p.m. Eastern. Transcendent talk for the conscious mind.
Being a radio host on IOM FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single OMTimes endeavor. Host your show with OMTimes Radio Network.
You're listening to OTR FM, part of the IOM radio network.
don't really think about in terms of trusting yourself and building your self-confidence, because I think we tend to not build ourselves up or believe in ourselves as much as we should. And talking with MJ Ryan and how we can build our self-trust back. So what I want to do, we're at our half-hour mark, and I'd like to do some announcements and tell you where you can get MJ Ryan's book. Her book is Trusting Yourself, Growing Your Self-Awareness, Self-Confidence, and Self-Reliance. And you could get that at Amazon.com or Barnes & Noble online or in bookstores, right, MJ?
Absolutely, yes. And also you can go to my website, and there's links to the books there. My website is mj-ryan.com.
Okay, and that's mj-ryan.com, RYAN, MJ. So go there. She's got some wonderful, wonderful books, and they're easy reads. I found this is a wonderful book to just really get through and get so much out of very quickly. And I think it's really awesome and wonderful. And also, I guess you have other services there as well that people can get information from.
Yeah, if people want to get in touch with me, you can email me, and I'd be happy to talk to you about working together if that's something that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's having somebody there to coach you and guide you and make your life better and help you find what it is that you need to do, break through your blocks and obstacles within yourself. It sounds like that's what MJ does in terms of helping others. So that's great. Go to her website, mj-ryan.com. And I have a few announcements. I've got a couple freebies out there for you, and there are two of them. And one is on how to start your spiritual business. It's related to the book that's just come out by Findhorn Press that I wrote with my co-author Cindy Griffith, called Grow Your Spiritual Business. And one of the things it talks about on the back is asking a couple questions. Do you find yourself going to work, but your heart's not in it? Do you long to do something with your life that's worthwhile and make a difference in the world? Or have you thought about starting your own spiritual or holistic business? Well, now is the best time to start and grow a spiritual business. It really is. It's amazing what you can do with the facilities that we have online and on the internet. Anybody can start a business and be successful. And you can fulfill your dream of really going out there and touching other people in a positive way. So I've got some free instructional videos that you can get, totally free, full of high-value content on things like how to remove your doubt about starting a spiritual business, how to transition from your day job to your spiritual business, and how to build a large customer list through attracting and resonating with people. So all you need to do is go to howtostartyourspiritualbusiness.com. You just enter in your email address, and you're going to get the links to the free videos immediately. That's howtostartyourspiritualbusiness.com. And if you're interested in making your intuition grow, that's my specialty. I am a teacher in developing your intuition, and I would dare say an expert in intuition. If you're interested in growing it and getting it to work for you instantly, go to my website and sign up for a free document on developing your intuition. It's on my website, lmk88.com. And in the document, in this ebook, you get 16 free intuition exercises you can do at home. So lmk88.com. Just opt in with your email address, and you'll get that exercise booklet immediately. So that's it. We've got those announcements, and we're coming back to MJ. I wanted to continue our fascinating conversation. Isn't that interesting? I had trouble myself calling myself an expert. Mm-hmm. What do you think about that?
Well, again, I think it's hard. I think it can be really hard to own our brilliance.
It's really hard. And, I have a PhD in metaphysics, and my dissertation was on intuition, and I've been teaching this to hundreds of people. And I can say that, I'm the intuition expert, but it's hard to roll it off your tongue. What is that?
Yes, it's, that quote by Marianne Williamson that's all over the place, but it's a wonderful one, which is that, it's harder for us to own our brilliance than anything else, but we need to, because that's what we have to offer to other people. And when we understand it to be a gift that we have to share with the world, I think that makes it a little bit easier.
Yeah, I think yes, accepting it as that gift. And
yes.
So it sounds like this may relate to something that you have in your book. I believe it's one of the chapters that says, since we compare
Yes.
well. We're comparing ourselves to other people all the time, right?
Yes.
So what does that mean?
Yeah, so I got all worked up, I guess, by advice that say, stop comparing, don't compare. Well, guess what? That's not possible.
Right.
Because there's there's a part of our brain that exists just to do that. In fact, it's part of what makes us human. It's taking in information and running it through this filter based on the past that's an evaluative process. It's just not possible not to do. So my thought is, if we're going to do it, do it well. And the way to do it well, in my mind, is to use it to help ourselves move forward rather than to get stuck. So if you go, oh, well, I don't have this, this as much as that person does. I was thinking about money. I remember when somebody that I know got a huge book contract, right? And I was envious about that. And I was saying, well, I'm not as good as her because she made all this money in this book. And I thought, okay, well, wait a minute. What is this trying to say about what I need to work on in myself about writing? And what is this to say? What really does matter to me? Is it really getting $500,000?
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe it is, right? And so therefore, what can I do to actually increase the likelihood of that? But it also might be a sense of like inner security, which for me is what money always is. It's nothing to do with money. It only has to do with feeling safe. So go to the thing that's really what I care about, which is security. How do I get to feel more secure in my own skin so that I don't need the $500,000 to feel safe, as an example. So going underneath it and saying, what is this saying about what I want to be growing or learning or developing in myself?
Rather than getting stuck in the jealousy or the feeling bad.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
And right. So
and there's also another technique that relates to this that I really love. I read about this, I don't know where, but this is a Slovakian approach. Slovakian women teach this to their daughters about if you feel envious of someone else, you give a sincere compliment to the person who stirred up those feelings. So you actually
about what it is that you're envious of.
No.
Just okay.
Sincere about anything that you feel sincerely that you can compliment them on, and the good feelings that you generate from doing that will restore your faith in yourself.
Really?
Because then you'll feel good that you're a good person.
Oh, I see.
I just thought that was so interesting.
That's fascinating. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I'm just, I'm kind of visions are going through my head of people, feeling jealous and then going out and giving them a compliment. So it kind of, it pulls on you, but I could also see how it could shift
sincere. You have to really believe
that's it, right? That's the key thing.
You got to work up. What can I appreciate about this person? Right.
So now you've got all kinds of thoughts going through my head. Do you ever think you could go too far in being overly confident?
Oh, no question. What's interesting is how that creates blind spots, right?
Yes.
So some of the assessments, you probably have seen these in the corporate world. Sometimes they do these personality assessments or performance reviews.
Sure.
And you rate yourself, and then other people rate you. And there's some of them use this tool called, showing your blind spots, where when there's a gap between your idea of what yourself and everybody else's idea about you. You can also go the other way and show these unrecognized talents, where the other people rated you higher than you rate yourself. But of course, the big problem is blind spots, which is when we're overly optimistic, let's say,
Yes.
or confident, and therefore we're not recognizing the havoc that we may be wreaking on other people. And so there's no question that there's a danger.
So what do you do in that case?
Well, my experience with folks like that is that they lack a lot of self-awareness. They don't know they're doing it, so they don't know that there's something they should be doing about it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And when I work with people like that, often the only thing that works is really feedback. So I tend to do interviews with people who are their stakeholders and people they know, and a big number, let's say 10 people, and then I give them the number. Well, 7 out of 10 people say like da 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 da. So sometimes information, facts, data can actually break through and
yes.
have them understand, oh, I guess I do have a problem over there, which I didn't think I had, but not always.
That's interesting. So, and then now I'm going back in the other direction, and I'm also thinking about, as you were talking about corporate and how they have the evaluations. And so here, remembering you sitting in front of your boss or your manager and they have to go through their evaluation. So how do you maintain your self-trust, your self-confidence when somebody's going through and telling you areas for improvement?
Yeah, that's a really, really, really important question. There's lots and lots of research going on.
Oh, can we do it in 45 seconds? Give me the first one.
It's a really bad thing to do because it sets off the threat system and everyone's in fight or flight and they're not listening anyway. So they're learning that this is not an effective way to help people improve at all.
Oh, really?
Yeah, our own focusing on what's wrong doesn't help us. Other people focusing on what's wrong makes us do worse.
Oh, so that whole evaluation, the 360 kind of thing where other people are, I don't know if you heard about that, but they have not just your manager evaluating you, but now other people who you work with. That sounds like that's not a really good thing.
It sends you into fight or flight.
Well, we should talk about that more after the break. And I've got even other things. This is just wonderful. I'm going to run out of time. But we're going to go to break. We'll come back and we'll continue our discussion with MJ Ryan.
This is OTR FM, part of the IOM radio network.
Have you ever wondered how to change your love paradigm? The secret key is finding a love partnership, not just a regular connection. How do you find these? Through conscious relationships. Ascending Hearts Dating is a dating site for people like you that believes in second chances and a different type of spiritual connection. Try Ascending Hearts for free today at ascendinghearts.com. and change your love paradigm. Ascending Hearts, the premier dating community for the spiritually awake.
Circle of Hearts Radio is a sanctuary on the airwaves. Join me, Grandmother Elia, in the circle on Sunday, 2 p.m. Eastern as I share information to both enlighten and nourish your soul.
Hello, I'm Miriam Knight of New Consciousness Review, inviting you to my new show where I interview the rising stars of the conscious awakening. We'll explore the many faces of consciousness in action and intriguing perspectives on life, the universe, and everything in between. Join us each Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern on the Rising Stars Show.
Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
You're listening to OTR FM, part of the IOM radio network.
Lisa Kay, and you're listening to Between Heaven and Earth, Conscious Living for Your Soul. And we are talking about ways that we can help maintain our self-confidence and trust ourselves. And I'm here with MJ Ryan, having a wonderful conversation. MJ, this is like fascinating. The research that you've discovered and bring together. We were talking about how for the last 30 seconds before we went to break, about how corporate evaluations are. I guess the manager telling you all the things. Let me get this right. The manager telling you what you are not doing well is not going to help.
It
really, ultimately
decreases your performance. So I looked it up while we were on the break. I actually went and looked back up my statistics. It decreases your performance 26.8%. Minus it decreases it. When we focus on your strengths, it increases it 36.4%.
Wow. So look at the good things, not the bad things.
And strengthen those. Yep. Wow. Now, this doesn't mean that you should never ever look at what's wrong, but doing it in a way that
focus on it.
Yeah, doing it in a way where you have what's called a growth mindset, which is to say, what can I learn from this? How can I grow from this? Rather than feeling threatened, because the threat system is very primitive and it turns on right away.
Oh,
super, super fast. Everything that happens to us goes there first. And so you have to overcome that by getting into this. You've got to really work to take it in, to take criticism or performance for weaknesses in a way that can actually help you.
You know, I was just thinking about how that could help people with like couple issues, right? When your husband or your wife is not doing what you want them to do, or right?
Well, it's funny that you said that, because one of my favorite articles is called "What Shamu Taught Me About Training My Husband," and it is a science writer writing about. She was writing an article on the big animal trainers and what they do, and then which is they only reward approximations of what they want. They totally ignore when they're not doing it right.
Well, of course, you know that's conditioning. My background was my first degree was in actually in ethology and animal behavior, and you want to condition the good stuff. So don't reward the bad behavior.
And so she did that with her husband, and she got him cleaning up the kitchen and stuff that he never
really
done.
Wow.
Yeah, and so she wrote a whole article.
So how would you do that though? How do you reward? Is it through words? Is it through what?
Yeah.
I mean, you can't throw them like a treat.
No, you could say, "Oh, thank you so." So you don't say you never clear the table. Blah, 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 you know, thank you so much for bringing in that dish. I really appreciate it.
That's fantastic. I love that.
She literally wrote a whole book on it, with that title.
And what was the title again?
What Shamu Taught Me About Training My Husband.
Oh, that's great. I love that. I wanted to shift gears a little bit. You had mentioned in the book, and I think even when we talked in the pre-show, about making decisions, and the best way to make a decision is actually not to use your left brain alone. Do you remember that you were saying that it was study?
Yes.
So, I want to hear more about that. What is that all about?
Well, it turns out that, we have both this logical mind, and we also have a bigger part of our brain that is pattern seeking. That's where intuition lives. It's like the forest. It's the forest versus the trees. The logical mind is like the trees, and the intuitive mind is like the forest. It's a big picture pattern understanding brain, and we need both to make good, really wise decisions. And for those who are very strongly analytic, like scientists, they tend to poo-poo this intuition stuff, right?
That's me.
Yeah, and so there was this really interesting research done on folks who had severed connections between their left and right hemisphere. So they were stuck on their left hemisphere. They could only think logically, and the researchers thought, their decision making is going to be much, much easier because they just can lay out the pros and cons, and they're then easy. And what they found instead is that no one could make up their mind at all, because after the pros and cons, there's something else that comes in that is some kind of gut check, some kind of intuitive knowing. I have worked with people who say that some of them say they have first, then they do sort of the pros and cons. So whatever order it works for you, you have to.
I think
those things,
a
right?
lot of us have a feeling about something and then we kind of justify it with our logic.
Yeah.
But it sounds like, but we're not aware of that.
No.
Right? So that's fascinating. And so why is that? Did they say why?
They don't know why. I mean, it's just, sorry, I can't give you the why.
Oh, that's me. I always want to know why.
but what I can say is that we can use this when we're stuck by getting around our unstuckness. So I can give you a couple of suggestions that come from my ways to increase your trust in yourself.
Yes.
So when you're stuck and you go, I don't know what to do. One way to get unstuck is say, well, if I did know, pretend I did know, what would I do? It's just, another one is to say, think of the wisest person I know. It could be someone alive, dead, doesn't matter. What would they tell you to do? Now that's what I love, because
I like that too a lot.
Another one that I always use is say, what would you tell a friend of yours to do?
Yeah, it seems to take you out of the equation. Maybe it's because now you're not afraid of making a mistake.
Exactly. It's so amazing because, of course, the wise person isn't there, or it's just that it eliminates the interference that's disconnecting you from your own wisdom. Right?
It's kind of like faking it until you make it, but it's not really fake because you're still thinking about, okay, what would the wise person do? Well, they would be doing X, Y, and Z because of A, B, C.
But you don't even know because you don't. It's just
right. Sometimes you don't know.
Right. It's still you making it up.
Yeah. Right. So, but you're going through a process that you're not owning. It's interesting. We almost have to trick ourselves or trick our primitive minds, our primitive brains, our emotion side
to get out of
it. Yeah, because it gets in the way.
Yes, exactly. Yep.
So what other ways could we increase our self-trust?
So it depends on the kinds of things that are getting in.
So let's think of some things. How about when we're doing? Well, we just talked about when we're doing something that we've never done before.
Okay. Yep. A way to do that is to vividly imagine. So that's see, feel, and hear. People often talk about this in terms of visualization, but you really need to activate all of your channels. So you need to feel yourself doing it as well as see yourself doing it, hear yourself doing it. Imagine yourself doing it right. So when people are afraid, for instance, clients of mine, about giving a speech, I say, okay, so imagine standing up there on the podium or looking out at the crowd of people and you're feeling really comfortable. See, feel, and hear yourself doing a really great job, right? And so the more you bring it to life, imagining doing it well, then the more you actually will.
Okay, so right down to the detail where you would be standing and what you're wearing.
Exactly. What they're looking.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. So the brain doesn't differentiate between rehearsal and actually doing it. You're actually creating pathways to doing that well when you're imagining doing it well. So the research from this comes originally from Olympic skiers. They took skiers years ago, decades ago, and put half of them practiced actually going on the slope, and half of them imagined going on the slope.
Really?
Yep. And each turn, because they had gone on the slope in the morning, so it wasn't like they didn't ever have the experience. But
yes,
but there was no.
But the rehearsing.
And now, exactly. And so that's.
It's interesting because when you do watch the Olympics, you'll see before the Olympiads, before they go do their thing, whether it's going down the slope or you could see they're practicing in their minds. They're like going through the mini motions as they're standing on the side.
Because the research in this was so strong that it has become the standard practice now for all athletes to do.
So that would be good for people with like stage fright, I would guess, or talking in front of public speaking.
Yeah, or anything in which you've got to get up and do something, right? doing it, but it's really see, feel, and hear yourself.
And being successful at it, I think it does a couple things. One is I think it manifests it for you. You know, that's what they say. You know, everything begins in the mind, and it's sort of like the vision board. And when you do that in your mind, it actually will help create it for you. You know, whatever mechanism that is. That you know, it all comes together. And I think, you know, your book is wonderful, MJ. You are even more amazing in person talking to. I'm just like, I learned so much from you just listening to you and having you answer these questions. It's just phenomenal. You know, I'd love for you to come back.
Oh, sure. I'd love to.
Yeah. And, you know, we could talk more because I could talk to you forever. There's all these wonderful things. So we're at the end of our show. We've got about 30 seconds and we'll go over, let's see. So the book is Trusting Yourself, Growing Your Self-Awareness, Self-Confidence, and Self-Reliance by MJ Ryan. And you can go to her website at mj-ryan.com, R-Y-A-N. And so here we are. Thanks again, MJ.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for being with us. You've been listening to Between Heaven and Earth, Conscious Living for Your Soul. And we are here on OMTimes Radio Network. We're here every Wednesday at 4 p.m. So come back and join us. Angel blessings to everyone. Bye.